Welcome to the BMX Commentator Podcast with your host, BMX World Cup and World Championship commentator, Rich Eames. You'll hear casual yet in-depth stories from BMX athletes and coaches, industry leaders, and all manner of BMX-connected people as we dive deep behind the scenes into what makes BMX racing the best sport on two wheels. Grab a spicy snack and your favorite beverage and get ready to listen in as the gate drops on yet another killer BMX conversation.
All right, welcome back to the BMX Commentator Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Eames, UCI BMX Racing at World Championships and a World Cup commentator. Delighted to bring another guest to you here today for episode 14. Some people might be familiar with this name, some people might not, but I'm going to introduce you anyway. Finn Hall, welcome to the BMX Commentator Podcast.
Thank you for having me on, Rich.
Yeah, good to have you on. Now, there'll be a few people that listen to this podcast that don't know who you are because you've been away from BMX racing for a little while. But yeah, just quickly introduce yourself and take us through your BMX history.
Yeah, as you said, some people might not recognise the name. Been away from BMX for quite a few years now, but I started in Preston quite a few years ago when I was 6, maybe 7 years old. Raced all the way up until 17, 18. World Euro Championship level, and was on the Olympic development programme from sort of 15 years old onwards. And then an injury ended, that BMX career. Natural progression, really. Went on to university and then went on to start, my business, Headstrong.
Right. So let's go kind of backwards a little bit to the start of BMX. So you started, 6, 7 years old at Paradise Preston, as we call it. And just tell us about, your BMX racing, that age group that you were in. Because obviously you were in with Ross Cullen and numerous others. So you had a very competitive age group from minute one.
Yeah, it was incredibly competitive, even from, the very first year of racing. I think Preston does a very good job of nurturing young talent, I think, and that was definitely the case back then with the guys down at Preston, and there was a real crop of young talent coming from Preston, and there was quite a few years in the national series when we sort of, we went unbeaten for quite a few years as a club, I think, and Preston's a great place for nurturing, young and up-and-coming riders. We hit the national series from the get-go, really, and I was pretty successful sort of from the get-go. In my younger years, that's where I sort of found my most success, really. I was national champion, British champion, and all that sort of stuff, and then went on to race at Euro and World Champs level. I took a short break when I was 11, 12 to go and race karts for a couple of years. Pressure of BMX perhaps got a little bit too much at a young age, and then I returned to sport when I was 13-ish.
Yeah, because I remember you kind of taking that break, because I think your dad had a karting background, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it's, you were always there or thereabouts. Who was in that age group with you? Like I say, you won national and British titles. Who were your main rivals in those age groups when you were growing up?
Ross, as you said. Ross has been one of my very close best friends since, sort of we were 6 years old. Still very close friends. Now we work together. Now he shoots some film for me and my business. I'm lucky enough. I'm actually his +1 to the Olympic homecoming next weekend. So,
yeah.
Yeah, still got those BMX connections. But, we have Ross, who's still racing. Funnily enough, I was talking about this with my family the other day. It was quite interesting how, in our age group, it was so highly competitive, yet I believe there's only one person still racing, which is Ross. We had Ross, we had Tyrell, Nathan Ward, Mason Chidley, and then we all ended up racing up an age group. So against the likes of Tierna's Door, Euan Hunt, Gideon Arena. So there was, a real crop of fast riders.
Yeah, now you mention it, going back to like that time and all those kids, they were all super rapid.
Yeah.
All super rapid. And like you said, they've all drifted away in various different ways and forms apart from Ross. But Yeah, it was just good to see that level of competitive racing week in, week out. What do you think that BMX racing gave you as a younger rider that's kind of transferred into life now?
I think sport at any high level, especially at a young age, exposes you to a very high intensity of emotion, which others who don't participate in sport would be exposed to, really. And it causes you to grow abnormally quickly, emotionally, I think, as a young person, or it did for me anyway. You know, when you're the majority of your other peers at a young age, you know, sort of pre-teenage, or perhaps just, you know, spending the weekends at home playing Xbox and PlayStation, that sort of stuff. And then, you know, we were training 6 days a week and racing, you know, in front of these huge crowds at an international, you know, world, European level. It really causes you to grow very quickly, I think. And some people can cope with that pressure and other people can't. And there was a time where I think I could cope with the pressure, and then there was a time where I definitely struggled with it.
Yeah. And I think that's not unusual for young kids, because you do see kids, especially if they've been winning from minute one, and then they get to like 15 or 16, and then they suddenly find that they're not winning anymore. And sometimes that can almost be a shock to the system that's almost too much for them. And I've seen that happen in the past. But I think overall, the positives of having to deal with that pressure at an early age just come through, like you said, when you leave BMX and you go into the workplace and everything else further down the line. You know, you suddenly become, like, not immune to pressure, but you certainly handle it a lot better. So yeah, that age group. So what were the highlights for you in BMX then growing up? What were the standout memories?
Like I said, I had most of my success when I was younger. Won a lot of European, British and national races and titles with that. But it was almost like, at a younger age, I was on autopilot. I was a little bit of a robot when I was younger.
Right.
I would train very intensely and race very intensely. But, you know, beyond that, I was, you know, it also caused me a lot of stress at a young age, funnily enough, and that's what caused me to have a break. And I came back and, you know, perhaps wasn't quite as successful, but had some great results, you know, British champs podiums and European finals, many European finals over the years. Probably my favourite races, European races, going away to those, you know, racing in front of huge crowds in huge classes, especially when, you know, 13, 14, 15 boys, perhaps the peak of BMX for many people, purely because of the level of riders that are around. And I remember racing, you know, in a couple of Euro rounds, I think it was Zolder, and, you know, there was over 200 people in a class, 200, 250 people in one mixed age group class, which is, you know, just to make the final and, perform well at races like that was probably the highlight.
Yeah, just to get out of the motors at a Euro round with 250 riders in your class is pretty insane.
I mean, the quality of racing, back then was really, really good.
Yeah. And there is another one that stands out for me, actually. I think it was a race at Manchester where you had a crash on the third straight. And I seem to remember a photograph of you almost going over the top of another rider. Yeah,
that was Hoostra de Groot, a friend from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And, that was the Manchester European round. That was in the final.
Yeah.
I had a great race in the semi. Came back on the last straight to get a fourth on the line. And then, I was mixing it in the pack in the final, but it all went wrong. And it's a great photo, that.
I do remember that photo very well, because I remember looking at it on the viewfinder of somebody else's camera, I think, if I remember correctly. So, that was a standout for me, definitely. So, have you got any other major memories from your time in BMX?
I mean, I think it's the friendships you make is another massive, valuable part of doing sport throughout your childhood and your teenage years. You know, I made friends from all over Europe, and, you know, people that came and stayed with me in the UK. I went over to see them, you know, in the Netherlands, and it's great that there's very few sports, because of the tight-knit community that BMX has. There's very few sports where you can find that level of connection with people, and especially I encourage anyone, if they are, you know, if they're considering racing BMX at a European level, to just go and do it, because those are some of the best memories and some of the best money you will ever spend, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I'm inclined to agree with that one. I think I might be venturing into Europe next year. So yeah, it'd be it's certainly, you know, for the most part, all positive from what I've heard, you know, in terms of your skill development and, like you say, your personal development and the friendships that you make and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely superb. So your exit from BMX, was it like a gradual kind of realisation that you were going to step away from the sport, or was there just one moment that made you go, right, that's it, we're done with BMX? How did that end?
Well, I suppose it was a mix of the two, really. I was on the Olympic development programme at the time. There was maybe 5 of us: myself, Ross, Nathan Wood, Tyrell, and Euan, and Tian as well. We're on the Olympic development programme at the time, so we're training in Manchester most weekends. And although I was still doing well at the time, you know, you couldn't help but feel that you were almost, you know, maybe a training mule for other people in that sense. So I sort of knew that I wasn't going to do it as a career and there'd be a natural progression. But I was training at Blackpool one day and went over the bars, classic, put both your hands down, and then broke both my wrists at the same time.
Right.
So, you know, from then on, I was in and out of a cast. You know, I had a couple of re-breaks, in and out of a cast for 18 months. Did my A-levels during that time, went off to university, and, you know, it's sort of natural progression, really.
Yeah.
That's just the way it happened.
Yeah.
But equally, you know, I wasn't going to do it as a career.
Okay. So life kind of just naturally moved on after the wrist breaks. I knew you'd broken one wrist. I didn't know you'd broken both.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's certainly a shock to the system. So you moved on to university. BMX had kind of faded away a little bit into the background. So what did you do at university? What was the course?
I did international business and marketing at university.
Wow.
And I can firmly say that I didn't enjoy any of it.
Right.
And I found it a complete waste of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, that's normally, I would say, not the case for most people who go to university. I'm sure they would, you know, the hard nights of you know, cramming everything in for exams and that kind of stuff is you know, part and parcel of the job. So I'm quite surprised that you said that. Bearing in mind what you do now for a living, you know, and you run a business, a successful business, but your university degree you feel wasn't kind of connected to that. What was it about university that didn't tick a box for you?
I think university lends itself to a certain type of person, and that sort of person is someone who, you know, perhaps looks to go to university and spend 4 years doing not much.
Right.
Basically, you know, and I've never sort of really been that person. I found university quite unmotivating, quite outdating, and I wouldn't put my university experience down to me going and therefore starting a business. You know, it was more a case of my own interests and my own personal discovery than anything else. And I suppose at university I had plenty of free time to be able to do that.
Yeah, so you were already looking at options then when you were at university. You were always exploring avenues. So were you at university locally or were you away from home?
I was at Newcastle.
Oh, you're at Newcastle, right. Okay.
Well, Newcastle's a great city.
It is.
It's a great nightlife.
Yeah.
And it's got a great student community.
Good. So, the seeds were sown up in the northeast, which is good. Because looking at your social media, because obviously I've followed you for years because we've known each other for years, were you, like, reselling streetwear and that kind of stuff at one point? It looked like it was from your Instagram, and you were doing some form of, I would describe as personal shopping. Is that correct? How did that all work? Yeah,
that was perhaps when I was a little bit younger, maybe sort of 14 to 18-ish. I was very much into the streetwear boom as it came about, and I sort of utilised that and sold a lot of clothing. There was a couple of brands back in the day where stuff would release on a regular basis, and I'd have people down in London like middle-aged men and whatever, pay to line up for me and get these clothes for me, and I sell them on for a profit.
Okay.
And then after that, I moved on to selling sportswear, so branded sportswear, Nike, Under Armour, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Did that from 18 to 21-ish, and that was pretty successful, and that's what got me the capital to start up Headstrong, my latest business. I wouldn't like to say easy money, but it sort of was. There was a real peak of paid social advertising back then, where you could spend quite a little on ads, and with the right targeting, you could make a lot of money. And I was in full-time education and, doing quite well. Okay.
Yeah. So did that supplement your kind of university years? Did that kind of pay for your education? Did it certainly make a dent in the bill? Because most people leave education with, a fairly substantial amount of debt. So was that helpful for you as you went through that university phase?
I'm more inclined to pay off the tuition fees at as low a level as I can, I think. To be honest, I wouldn't be paying that off in a rush. But it meant that, I've never had to go and get a job whilst at university. I always paid my way through.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a real plus, considering the cost of universities these days. I mean, I've got a daughter who's going to be looking at university in the next 12 months, so that kind of thing's definitely on my mind. So, but yeah, it's, I think there's opportunities now for young people that, I hate to say, when I was younger and all that kind of stuff, because there's an age gap between me and you, but, you look on YouTube now and there's, young lads who are reselling, hard to find sneakers, they're selling clothing, and they're making decent money at it, and it seems like every other person's got a street brand and a streetwear brand and a vlog on YouTube, and they're doing that kind of thing. So I think the opportunities are definitely there for young people that, weren't there at some point when I was younger and all that kind of thing. Never existed when I was a lad, but it's absolutely true.
No, you're absolutely right.
There's so much more opportunities for kids to be financially successful at an early age. How much, like you say, you kind of alluded to the fact that you'd done paid ads and that kind of thing. How much did social media play into that success? Within like reselling and all that kind of stuff.
It is the business.
Yeah.
Like you said, the opportunities now to make money, especially on an online sphere, is almost endless. You can pick up your phone and begin creating content, whoever you are, wherever you are, and if you make the right sort of content and it's engaging, you can begin to get paid for that.
Yeah.
There's never been a time on earth when that's been possible, really.
Mm.
But yes, social media was a business, and if you can market something well, it's quite easy to grow at least a small following. And it's when you boil it down, it's very simple, really. The business in the early days, perhaps I maybe spent 5-6 hours a week on that business whilst I was in full-time education, and you can earn more than majority of people would on a full-time salary, really.
Wow, and that was just reselling streetwear and sportswear and trainers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. So I've got to ask the question then, did you have any celebrity clients?
A couple of footballers, a couple of DJs, but yeah, the club, funnily enough, especially the sportswear, which is the successful part of it, that was, I never really had a passion for it. It was just a way of making money for me, really. I wasn't really interested in the clothes that I was selling.
Yeah.
It was very much just, a means of getting by and, a way that I didn't have to get a job, basically. That I could do this and, I didn't have to go and work, in a restaurant or something like that, really.
Yeah, right. Okay. Did any of your kind of mental skills that you'd kind of brought across from BMX, did any of that transfer directly into sort of starting these businesses at an early age?
I think subconsciously, yes, because I've quite an obsessive personality, I think.
Okay.
That maybe stems from BMXing, really. You know, you train a lot and you become obsessed with a thing, and BMX is a game of finite margins at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, you're on the track for 30 seconds, so you do everything you can to optimise every single element of that race, and, you know, that can, again, be transferred over to business. And if you look at, you know, the finite details and break it down and look to optimise these small areas, then that's when you see, you know, big benefits in the end. It's the classic Dave Brailsford marginal gains, which is something I've definitely carried on into business, and something that, or an idea that I respect massively, and almost the basis of what Headstrong has been built around. You know, the idea of that 1% improvement every day. If you can achieve that every day, it might feel like nothing in the current time, but, you know, later down the line, you're a completely different person. Yeah,
yeah. So, moving across then to, like, the origins of Headstrong and how it all started, because as I was alluding to before, a lot of, like, these younger people, I say it like I'm a pensioner, honestly, like these young people who start these businesses and they start the streetwear brands and all that kind of stuff, and you see a lot of it on YouTube, because I see a lot of that content anyway. You went into a market that I don't think I've seen anybody else go into online or anything like that. So how did functional mushrooms become a thing for you?
Yeah, I was at university at the time, and I carried on my training from BMXing. I transferred that over to CrossFit, and I've been doing that ever since. And I'm very conscientious about what I put into my body, in terms of, you know, food, supplements, anything like that. And I was following a long-distance runner on Instagram who was talking about the benefits of the cordyceps mushroom. I had no idea what they were at the time. So went down the rabbit hole of functional mushrooms and decided to, you know, try them out for myself. Loved the benefits, and then took a bit of a deeper look into the market and found that, you know, the majority of products on the market were substandard, really, and, you know, more accessible through their price. So I reached out to a manufacturer who I knew that could supply me, you know, with the highest quality product. Had some products designed for myself, tested them out over a couple of months whilst I was at university, and then had a bit of a light bulb moment and thought, there's a product that I could take to market here, and then sort of pushed the final year of my degree aside, really, to focus on this.
Right, okay. So you didn't actually finish university?
I did not. I did finish reluctantly. Yeah.
Right, okay.
But, yeah, I spent maybe 90% of the time in final year, on building the business rather than on studying.
Right, okay. So for those who don't know, what are the benefits of functional mushrooms?
So we have 5 main products on site, 6 if you count the mushroom blend. And the brilliant thing about functional mushrooms is that there's such a wide variety of benefits within each mushroom. So we have reishi, which is fantastic for your sleep and for stress and anxiety. Lion's mane, which is great for focus and mental clarity. Tremella, which is great for the skin. Cordyceps, which is great for cardiovascular endurance and energy. And chaga, which is great for digestive health.
Right, okay. So there's just those 5 products within your range.
Yeah, 6 if you count the mushroom blend, which is a combination of the 5.
All right, okay, fantastic. So when you kind of had this light bulb moment and decided, right, I'm going to start this mushrooms business, well, mushroom supplements business, did you realise that it was going to be an all-in thing, or did you kind of almost start it slowly? What was the mindset behind it?
Yeah, I've always been a bit of an all-in person, I think. So yeah, I was going to go all in from the start. I had the money there to put, you know, all of it into the business, or, you know, I thought maybe I'd have a little bit left over at the end. Turns out when I went to launch, I didn't have anything left, really, so I ended up having to raise a bit of capital. But yeah, you know, I was very much of the mindset of going all in. I think that's when, you know, if you really put yourself under stress and under pressure that's when great things can be achieved, I think. So there was no way that I was going to go into it half-heartedly, because chances are, it'll lead to a half-hearted outcome. Yeah,
yeah. With the brand, because obviously the branding is quite minimal, I would describe it as. Was that the way you wanted it to be? Because I've looked at other mushroom supplement brands. I've tried Lion's Mane in the past from another company, and their branding's very kind of what I would describe as basic and old school, and it's brown paper packaging and that kind of stuff. And yours is very kind of minimalist and contemporary and that kind of thing. What kind of image were you trying to because like most people go, mushrooms, they might be a bit no. What barriers did you have to break down as a brand to push yourself forward?
Yeah, I think from a branding perspective, I've always had a love for great design, and I think I take what the brand does well is taking inspiration from other areas, not just I think people start brands and look within their own market for inspiration, and that's where they go wrong, really. You should look to wider culture, arts, music, film, architecture, all these areas for inspiration, and you can find it everywhere. But I think the key with, as you said, because of the product being mushrooms, people are naturally a little bit apprehensive to try the product, so the branding needs to be modern and desirable, but also respectful. I think people quite wrongly go down the route of trying to market these functional mushroom products as almost psychedelic products,
right?
When that really isn't the case.
Okay.
With all the trippy branding, and it gives a total wrong message with what the product is and what can be achieved with the product.
Yeah, yeah. So, in that kind of that sphere, I suppose, of the design and that kind of stuff, is there anybody else kind of within your marketplace who does anything similar to you, or are you pretty much unique
in terms of design?
Yeah,
I'd like to think that we're pretty unique. I think, at least from the feedback that I get from customers and other people, the brand gained a lot of interest from potential investors and retail presence from an early stage, which I think other brands perhaps didn't, because it's a product that can sit amongst homeware and clothing, nicely and look of a piece within a great shopping environment, I think.
Yeah, yeah, because I've seen that you've done collaborations with clothing brands and you've been in various stores in cities around the world. What kind of places have you been into with the brand?
Most recently was a trip to Paris for Paris Fashion Week. We collaborated with an outdoor brand called Hiking Patrol over there. The guys from Hiking Patrol reached out to me at the start of the year, mentioning that they wanted to create a collaborative product to release alongside their new clothing collection for autumn-winter 24, which was obviously amazing, really cool. They've got quite a large social presence, so to get exposure on that sort of level was great, and then to work on a bespoke product with these guys, which could then be seen by a lot of great buyers and a lot of people of interest on an international level, was definitely a great stepping stone for the brand. Yeah,
yeah. Can you see yourself stepping back into, I wouldn't say just into BMX, but into sport in general and supporting athletes? Like a lot of brands have, brand ambassadors who are athletes and that kind of stuff. Do you see Headstrong going in that direction, or are you going more down the, I wouldn't want to say influencer direction, but that sort of way, which is away from sport? How do you see that progressing?
Yeah, no, definitely not influencer, as you said.
Yeah.
That can be associated with, Love Islanders selling charcoal toothpaste.
Yeah.
Which is definitely not, the avenue for the brand. But yeah, there will be, we will in the future be supporting. I wouldn't like to say athletes completely, because athletes will be an element of that. I'd say more sponsored individuals. I'd like to sponsor people who are, the doing interesting stuff and pushing boundaries within any given, niche or area, really. It doesn't have to specifically be athletes. You know, these products aren't just performance products.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to, you know, reach out and work with people who are creatives in other industries.
Yeah. Ah, right. Okay. So people who can take the product, use it within what they do and reap the benefits of that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. In terms of like the future of the brand, what would you ultimately like to see? Would you like to be on the shelf of, you know, a particular retailer? Are you more wanting to be direct to consumer? Because I know you do a lot of that as well. Yeah. What would be the ideal pathway for the brand?
I think, well, I sort of, obviously, as anyone starting a brand will have big aspirations for the brand, but I want to, you know, build out a whole ecosystem underneath the Headstrong name, really, that goes beyond supplements, natural supplements, into, you know, lifestyle products, collaborating with various brands, you know, pushing our own retail presence.
Yeah.
I'd like to have retail presence, you know, where people can simply exist, you know, beyond a shopping level. You know, people can come in and work and have meetings and chat and have these spaces where, you know, people just want to be amongst, if you will. I think I'd like to build that out so Headstrong becomes associated with a consistent level of high quality within whatever we do.
Yeah. So it's almost like Headstrong will be a part of people's daily lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a product will be instantly recognisable as, you know, having the Headstrong quality.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Did you expect the level of success that you've had, or do you feel like it's just a result of that consistent 1% every day, the marginal gains, the making those little bits of progress? When you started it, in your head, did you go, right, I want this level of success, and that's where you've got to or are heading to? Or did you just feel like, right, let's just build it and see where we could go with it? What was your mindset on that?
I'm nowhere near where the brand will eventually be.
Oh,
definitely not.
I like to hear this.
You know, nowhere near.
Yeah.
Yeah, although we've had success in a short space of time, you know, we've only been going for 15, 16 months now, so still a fairly young brand. But I only just, you know, I feel like I'm just getting started, really.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity with what I can and what I will do with the business moving forward that, you know, at this current state that it is now, it's still massively in its infancy.
Yeah.
And, yeah, where the brand will be in, you know, 2 years, 5 years' time will be completely different. You know, it will continue to scale. Yeah.
Yeah, because you do see brands that come along and they're the hot thing for 18 months, 2 years, and then they vanish. So the longevity of what you do, I suppose, is key.
And this is why you need to be able to pivot, because although the functional mushroom market is great currently, there's, you know, that's not to say that it won't be as strong in, you know, a few years' time. It needs to be, the brand needs to have enough strength that you can pivot into other products, whether that be other natural supplements, and people know that whatever you put out is of the highest quality and that they will get benefits from it. You know, I never wanted to contain the Headstrong brand within one market. You know, that's why I didn't name it, you know, anything mushroom related, really, because then you automatically confine yourself to the mushroom market moving forward, unless you go through, you know, a massive rebrand.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, maybe I've made a mistake calling this podcast the BMX Commentator Podcast then. But, well, yeah, that's another story for another time. But yeah, you know, like I said, I like the way that you're thinking with it and the fact that you want to push it so much further on. Kind of going back to the BMX side of things a little bit, you mentioned that you've done some work with your good close friend, Ross Cullen. You're still best mates to this day. So what kind of things have you been doing with Ross?
I think Ross has, because he probably, you know, a full-time athlete, he doesn't spend much of his money. So what he does have is a fantastic camera setup, and he's pretty good behind the camera as well.
Yeah.
So we shoot a lot of content together, and next week he's actually coming and shooting a behind-the-scenes video for YouTube. I'm going down to London again. We're shooting our first promotional video for the Hiking Patrol product, which will release end of September.
Okay.
So first time that I'm being able to properly express myself creatively, really. And so I've got an actor and another guy who's shooting the actual video, and Ross is coming down with me to shoot the behind the scenes for YouTube. It's something that I've ventured into recently, and you know, when I first started this, I hated talking in front of a camera. I just hated it. It took me so long and so much work to get to a point where I felt, you know, even a little bit comfortable doing that. But I found nothing but positives come from putting myself out there online. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, people don't care anywhere near as much as you think they do.
Yeah.
Really. That's all I said, that, you know, from a positive perspective, that's only a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Ross he's done the Olympics now. He's having a few weeks off, so he's helping you out with some content, which is brilliant. And I fully expect Ross to be, you know, part of that story moving forward. Just talking of your YouTube stuff, I did watch your Paris Fashion Week vlog in the run up to this, and I thought it was really good. But yeah, I find it quite insane that, you know, you've gone from, you know, Preston and BMX, and now you're kind of roaming around at Paris Fashion Week, and, you know, you're hanging out with brands, and, you know, you're doing, like, you know, group running sessions running through the streets of Paris. I can certainly see the parallels with a certain clothing brand that exists up the road at Horwich. They represent that vlog very much reminded me of what they do, and again, they do it very well. And if you have the represent level of success, then everybody will know who you are. Do you know what I mean? So, which is absolutely awesome. So, yeah, Preston, Paris, London. You know, do you see yourself going worldwide eventually?
Yeah, no, we'll be going worldwide soon. Yeah, we'll be going worldwide soon. We've got a couple of events planned. The new products, collaboration with Hiking Patrol, will be shown in Seoul and in Tokyo in September.
Wow.
So there'll be the launch event for the brand. We're doing 2 stores in Seoul and Dover Street Market in Tokyo, which will be great. And then from then on, you know, that'll open the gates to pursue wider retail presence in those areas. It's definitely great, you know, opportunity in those markets, I think.
Yeah, phenomenal. Yeah. Brilliant. It just, honestly, it boggles my mind that you know, this kind of thing is possible, you know, for, like I say, younger people have that opportunity to do that. I keep saying younger people. I feel like I'm just totally dating myself. Do you know what I mean? But I think about my own kids and, you know, the possibilities and the doors that they could possibly open for themselves, you know, by just pursuing what they love and taking it to the level that you've taken it to. So I see you, you know, as an inspiration, not only for my own kids, but for, you know, kids within BMX who might just have that little spark where they just think, oh, well, I might just have a go at that, you know. Finn did it, so, you know, it's possible, and you've set the bar, you know, you've set the direction for kids to actually go out and do that kind of stuff.
I think if people pursue something from a perspective of passion, people are naturally drawn to that. You can't help but be drawn to that. You know, the consumer is more intelligent than they've ever been, and they can see through a brand that has been started purely to make money. You know, there needs to be... People throw around the word brand far too much. Yeah. You know, as in that brand means any business selling any products. Yeah. It's not the case, really. You know, that's a company. A brand is a feeling and an emotion, really. And it's that's what people connect with, and people want to connect with someone behind a brand now more than ever, I think, really. You know, a real human face telling a compelling and a passionate story around why they've, you know, chosen to pursue this project. And if you put out great stuff that you're passionate about, people will, like I said, be naturally drawn to that, I think.
Yeah. Because I think, if I remember correctly, looking at some of the reviews that you've had for the product as well, it seems that that people have really, like you said, bought into the brand. So what's been the number one review that you've had? What are the reviews that stick out in your head for Headstrong?
Yeah, some stuff. In the beginning, it sort of took me back a little bit. I mean, maybe because of my age, I use the products to optimise, my daily life and my training, really. So the products helped me out in that respect. But when people started taking them, who had ADHD or perhaps chose to use, lion's mane as a natural alternative to even antidepressants, and then started writing me, reviews around this and how the product has changed their life, and and these people have been subscribed from that point onwards, and it's become a key part of their daily routine. That's more rewarding than anything, really, for someone to come and take their time to write you an email telling you that this product has made such a vast change in their life. It's crazy, Yeah. It really took me back at the start, to this product was created in my university bedroom just by me, and then there's people all over the world who are finding it key to being able to perform at a high level in their everyday. It's just it's brilliant. Good.
So as we get to kind of like the end of this conversation, when you look back and connect the dots of everything that's gone on, do you feel that BMX has been almost the catalyst, not the complete catalyst, but certainly a catalyst for all of the success that you've had? Do you feel that, maybe had you not ventured into the BMX arena, that, things might not have turned out the way they turned out?
I mean, it can't not be, really. BMX was very much my life for what is still the vast majority of my life. All what you would class as, your transformative years, your younger years, especially going from, into your early teens, that was just BMX from age 6 to 18. I didn't do much else, and you learn so much from that. And the emotional intelligence you learn from doing sport is, I think, far beyond a lot of other things. And I've spoken with a number of other founders who have also begun in high level sports, and there's a massive correlation there between business acumen and being involved in sports at a high level from a young age.
Right.
And I definitely, when I get older and I have kids, I'd love to get them into BMX. There'd be nothing more than I'd love to do, and do the whole, BMX dad thing, just as my dad did. But yeah, beyond just enjoying racing and, beyond BMX as a sport in its purest form, just the emotional intelligence you learn from partaking in any sport, I think, is really crucial to development at a young age.
Yeah. So if I was to say, what 2 or 3 pieces of advice would you give to a young BMXer now, knowing what you know, knowing what you've achieved and what you're looking to achieve in the future, what would be those, 2 to 3 pieces of advice that you would give them?
I'd say, even beyond a BMX level, don't settle for mediocrity in whatever you do. Too many people can sit there and let life just pass them by. And I think you should pursue greatness in whatever you choose to do, whether that be BMX or, you're a chess player. I think you should be intense about things and disregard balance for at least a short period of time to really get to where you want to be. People preach the idea of balance, I think maybe a little bit too much. And if you look at the greats in any area of life, there's been a period where there was no balance in their life, when they were so obsessed with a goal that they pursued it over everything else, really. And commit and go all in on something, and that's when great things can be achieved, I think.
Fantastic. So no balance, all in, do what you love. That's an amazing place to wrap it up. Finn Hall, thank you very much for coming on the BMX Commentator podcast. I really appreciate it. I will have my eye on the Headstrong brand. I follow you on Instagram anyway. I will certainly keep an eye on what you're doing now, and just all the best. I just honestly can't wait to see what you can achieve next.
My pleasure, Rich. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to the BMX Commentator Podcast, the raddest thing to come out of Wigan since Pools Pies and the A49. Don't forget to hit the follow button wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to share this episode on your social media channels. To get in touch with the show, drop an Instagram DM to @BMX Commentator. Now, get your ass out to the BMX track and get racing. We'll see you for another show very soon.